Hello and welcome to Focus on Israel and the Palestinian Territories. I am Paul Calvert. Israel and the Palestinian Territories have many Christians who come to be volunteers in the land. But why would anybody want to come to a country so filled with violence, with suicide bombings, rocket attacks, targeted assassinations, and virtual civil war in the Gaza Strip? The answer is quite simple. It's the calling of God. We can go into any situation we face, knowing God is always by our side, leading and guiding us. Daniel's friends Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego had the same confidence in God. Daniel 3 verse 16 to 18 says, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied, O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. But even if he doesn't, your majesty can be sure that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue you have set up. Immovable confidence in God. King of Kings Community Church is a well-established church here in Jerusalem. Wayne Hilsden, the senior pastor of the church, came to Israel from Canada, and I asked him how long he's lived in the land of Israel.
We've been here 23 years. August 1983 we moved here with our two sons, and we've stayed on ever since.
You're from Canada. Why did you come here to Jerusalem?
That's a long story. I'll make it very brief. I was pastoring in a congregation in downtown Toronto, and on vacation my wife and I stopped at a church north of the city. Pastor invited us home for dinner and shared with us that the Lord had called him to move to Israel and plant a congregation in Jerusalem. And right off the top of his head, it seemed, he said, would you and Ann come and help me plant that congregation in Jerusalem? At first it seemed like a crazy idea, but the Lord planted that seed in our hearts. We began to pray about that, and then we took a tour to Israel, a spy out the land tour, to see if this truly was God's call in our lives, and we believed it was.
Yeah. Now, you used to rent from the YMCA. Now you have your very own building. How did that come about?
Well, we rented the YMCA auditorium on King David Street for over 20 years, and it was an adequate facility, actually seating 600 people. It was great. But with a rented facility, you had lots of surprises every weekend as we'd arrive and see things not always in order. And we felt that we really needed to have our own space, and not just to meet once a week on the weekend, but to have a place throughout the week that we could meet as a community. So we began to pray about that. And the Lord impressed upon me that we could do it, and He gave me the gift of faith, I believe, to step out of the boat and believe God to be able to acquire our own facility. And so what we found was the largest movie theater in Jerusalem, and began to negotiate on that, and we bought it.
So have you seen many miracles to the purchase of that?
Well, first of all, we only had $200,000 saved up in the bank toward a building, and they wanted $3.6 million for the property. We got it for less than that, but we basically just believed God wanted us to have it. We signed the papers. We needed $1.1 million within 2 weeks as a deposit. And one day I was sitting in our staff meeting, and I sensed the Lord say, get on an airplane. And so I did. And 6 hours later I was on a plane. Within 12 hours of my arrival in a particular destination, a man and his wife said that the Lord had spoken to them to give us $1.5 million.
Wow. And
that arrived in our bank account in good time, and we had more than enough for that first deposit. And we had miracle after miracle happen following that to make this possible.
Wow. You see, our congregational facilities is at the bottom of a big tower block, and we're on the 14th floor, and it looks like a building site at the moment. What's happening here?
Well, back in September last year, I was on a personal prayer retreat seeking the Lord. Actually, one of my goals was to ask the Lord to help us pay off the remaining debt we had on our first facility. We had raised over 3/4 of the amount to purchase, but we still had some loans. And I just wanted to pay those off. But as I began to pray, the Lord seemed to direct my prayers in a totally different direction. It actually led me to the decision to buy actually the top floor of the building in which our worship center is located, as you mentioned, on the 14th floor of an office tower. And the Lord said, build a prayer center. And so we call it the Pavilion Prayer Tower. Our worship center underground in the same building is called the Pavilion. And so this prayer center is now under construction, and we're sitting right here in the middle of construction. Within 1 week, we believe it'll be finished. We dedicate it on the eve of the day of Pentecost.
Mm-hmm. So why pray for the nation and the land here?
Well, we believe that prayer is the forerunner of God's purposes. When God is about to do something, He puts a burden of prayer on His people. And we've got a burden to pray for this nation, for the city. We believe in fulfillment of God's word that He will save His people Israel, and that Jerusalem once again will be a praise in the earth. And the Bible commands all believers to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. So we're simply obeying that commandment.